Astrology isn't just about signs and symbols. It's a tool for navigating real life. Hello, and welcome to Astrology with Alisa. I'm your host, Alisa Dixon, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. I feel like this week's episode is part 2 of last week's story. If you tuned in, you know I was in a rush to upgrade my phone before a certain astrological deadline. That deadline? The upcoming Mercury Retrograde. And today I want to unpack why that mattered and why I wasn't just being dramatic about the timing. So let's rewind for a second. When I first started studying astrology, I barely knew anything. I knew the signs, I knew the planets, I had heard about full moons, and I had definitely heard of Mercury Retrograde. It's one of those terms that slips into everyday language. Even if you don't know what it is, you've probably heard someone mention it, usually with an eye roll, so you know it means something's going wrong. Ironically, Mercury was retrograde during my first few weeks of astrology school. And since our classes always began with a discussion about what was happening in the sky, it was one of the first things we talked about. So here's the gist. When Mercury is retrograde, it appears to move backward in the sky from our point of view here on Earth. It's not actually going in reverse. It's just an optical illusion caused by our planetary positions. Think about when you're on the highway and you pass a slower moving car. From where you are in your car doing the passing, it looks like the other car is moving backward, even though it's still going forward. That's basically what retrograde motion is. Now, Mercury is the planet that rules communication, contracts, scheduling, technology, and travel by car, by plane, by bicycle, any kind of trip, although traditionally shorter distances. So when Mercury goes retrograde, all those things can feel off. Emails go missing, phones glitch, flights get delayed, previously scheduled appointments might not be on the calendar, misunderstandings happen. And that's why astrologers say, if you can help it, don't buy a new phone or computer during a Mercury retrograde. If you can help it, don't sign any contracts. Or if you have to do any of those things, just double and triple check all of the details. Make sure you read through whatever contracts you're signing at least once or twice. If you have an appointment scheduled, call and confirm it before you leave your house. Or if you're going on a trip, allow extra time for inevitable delays. Mercury retrograde isn't the end of the world, and you certainly shouldn't stop living your life. But the energy is just moving backwards. Things tend to take longer, come with surprises, or require extra steps. And Mercury goes retrograde 3 to 4 times per year. Since it's the fastest moving planet closest to the sun, this retrograde optical illusion happens a few times a year. Because it moves super fast and gets way ahead of Earth in the race around the sun, and then as Earth catches up, Mercury appears to move backward. And then it rushes forward again. And then it moves backwards again, and so on and so on. So here's how it can show up in real life. One year, we were flying during a Mercury retrograde, and I knew we were going to have some travel delays as a result. So, despite my husband's supreme annoyance, I insisted we leave a lot earlier than normal for the airport. And boy, was I glad we did. Clear, the fast pass system we used to bypass the long security lines, was doing surprise upgrades that morning. We had to stop and retake our pictures before we could get through. And of course, the line was much longer than usual because everyone was getting in the regular line first, only to be asked by the Clear agents if they had already done the update. And pretty much everyone hadn't, which meant the Clear agents then had to walk each traveler to another place outside security where there was another line to update the picture. And then people were getting back into the long clear line, which now had some people who had done the update and others who were starting this 3-line process. It took forever, And people were losing their minds. Everyone was frustrated, including my family. And it was all I could do to hide my amusement at the situation because I had allowed extra time. I knew we were going to be fine. And I was kind of getting a kick out of observing the astrology in action. I obviously had no idea that Claire was going to go wonky, but I was pretty confident there would be some kind of a delay that morning. And I was right. We did make our flight, but I was really glad we had that extra time. Even my husband appreciated the extra time that he was so annoyed about in the very beginning. I've learned over the years as I watch these patterns to expect to hear about travel hiccups, especially at certain times during a retrograde. For example, when we are in the week or so leading up to a retrograde, or when we are in those periods of time when Mercury is about to change direction and appears to stand still, we call that Mercury in station because it appears like it's in a stationary position in the sky. Those are the times that the retrograde wonkiness feels especially strong. And it's during those days that I'm usually extra careful with my planning. One time, we were on the day that Mercury stationed to go retrograde. I didn't have anything planned in my life that day that went wrong, but I was part of a group text that my friend sent to a bunch of us. He was on his way to go on vacation, and his car broke down at the side of the road. Literally. Far from home, needing major work or a rental to complete the trip. I honestly don't remember what he did, and I definitely didn't say anything in the moment, but I wasn't surprised in the least that this happened on this day of all days. Classic Mercury retrograde situation. And that brings me back to last week's episode. The last time I upgraded my phone, it was during a Mercury retrograde. This was before I started really watching the world around me during retrogrades to see how the energy would manifest. And on this last phone upgrade, things got complicated. I don't remember all the details now, but I had a lot of issues with app transfers, the Wi-Fi setup, whatever free things were supposed to come with the phone somehow didn't work properly. I think I even had an issue at the end of the whole process with the phone that I had planned to get. And it had been such an ordeal, I just went with whatever they had in stock. It all worked out, but the process felt clunky, and I wasn't really happy with it at all. And it was just like the energy wasn't flowing. It wasn't my day. That's how Mercury retrograde works. The planet's energy isn't lost, but it expresses differently. It's reversed. It's slowed down, turned inward. Instead of smooth sailing, you get speed bumps. And Mercury isn't the only planet that does this. The sun never goes retrograde, the moon never goes retrograde, but every other planet goes retrograde periodically. Venus went retrograde earlier this year, for example. And when Venus is retrograde, I tell people, maybe don't get that makeover just yet. Don't change your hairstyle and don't make any big purchases. Venus rules beauty and money, so you can guess what might go sideways. In fact, this year, my husband decided to start interviewing contractors during the time when Venus was retrograde. He wanted to redo a bathroom. I told him, no way, we're not starting this until Venus goes direct. We still entertained the appointments with the contractors. I even told one of them he could send the quote, but we weren't going to do anything while Venus was retrograde. That turned into an interesting conversation that I bet that contractor had never had before. But ultimately, that is the guy we went with, but we haven't started yet. Soon, but well beyond the retrograde. Then there's Mars. When Mars goes retrograde, you can feel a little lethargic or a little energy drained. Mars is the planet of action, drive. It's the go and do planet. So when Mars is retrograde, you kind of feel like doing the opposite. Mars was retrograde earlier this year also. And originally, I was going to launch this podcast closer to the beginning of the new year. I was so excited over the holidays about my plans and bringing my astrology out into the world. But with Mars retrograde, it wouldn't have been received well. It wouldn't have had the momentum that we did start with. This is one of the major ways I use astrology to work with the energy, not against it. Astrology is a timing tool. I look at the moon. Is the energy building or losing steam? I look at retrogrades. Which planet is it whose energy is behaving a little backwards? And then I adjust where my priorities are for that time period. I choose when to start projects, usually when the energy is building or moving forward, or when to revise and work on things that have been in motion already. That's when the energy is dropping or retrograde. Retrogrades are actually great time periods for revising, reworking, reorganizing, re-strategizing, rethinking. Are you noticing a theme here? It's all the re-words. I tend now to look forward to Mercury retrogrades, to do things like clean out closets or cupboards and reorganize my stuff. It's also a good time to redo or rethink communication styles. Do I still want to go along the same way I usually email, call, or text people, or do I want to shift things up a little bit? Interestingly, Mercury spends about the same amount of time in retrograde each year as we spend sleeping each night. Just like our bodies need to sleep to reset, repair, and process, Mercury retrograde can be seen as a time when our communication systems, our tech, our thoughts, our schedules need a little reset too. It's not broken, it's just recalibrating. So I tell you all this for a few reasons. If we can change our expectations about how the energy will show up during a retrograde, then we can deal with it a lot better. If you're expecting life to continue as normal, you'll be aggravated with every little delay or hiccup. But if you expect the energy to go backwards and slow you down, then you can roll with it a little better. You can plan for it. And we are coming into vacation season. It's mid-June. This is the time of year when a lot of people travel. School's out, sports are finished. This is when people usually have time to take trips. And I want you to be prepared. Which brings me to one more important detail, the shadow period. That's the period of time when Mercury is still moving forward, but traveling through the part of the sky he will eventually travel backwards through. When Mercury hits that zone, the shadow, it's like we're entering the prequel. You may start to feel the effects of the retrograde before the official retrograde period begins. And that's why I didn't want to wait to upgrade my phone. Mercury goes retrograde this summer on July 18th. But Mercury enters its shadow on June 30th, which is why my self-imposed deadline for upgrading my tech was June 29th. Thankfully, this time I'm well ahead of schedule. And we'll continue to talk about Mercury and all the retrograde energy as it happens. But I wanted to share this information with you before the shadow period starts, so you can get ahead of any weird retrograde energy, or at least have the awareness and observe how the energy shows up around you. Mercury retrograde doesn't mean stop living. It just means pay attention. Leave room for the extra steps, the delays, and a few plot twists. And if you've got travel coming up in July, just pad in a little buffer time, because Mercury may have some mischief in store for you. Thank you so much for listening. It's a pleasure, as always, to talk astrology with you all. If you're interested in how this Mercury retrograde might be hitting your chart, you can book a reading on my website. I'll leave the link in the show notes. I would be happy to unpack this in a little more personal way with you all. Thanks again for listening. Take care, and I'll see you next time.